Welcome to the channel, welcome to another video. Today we're talking fast, talking furious, talking a full review of Fast 9. I've now seen the movie a second time, so I'm ready to report my full thoughts. But there will be spoilers in this review. If you want to see my non-spoiler review, see my previous video, link in the description. Problems are easier than praise, so let's start with that. The main problem was Jacob. That character was poorly designed and written. His involvement with the father's death is the big one, and I'll get to that. But the fact that the bad guy team turned on him, and that is what actually helped our hero's team win, is also a big problem. The team, only with Jacob's help, was able to destroy the truck with the uplink stuff only just at the same time as our heroes destroyed the satellite. So was it our team's actions, or was our team just along for the ride, and if the bad guy team wasn't so stupid to turn on a super spy in the middle of a job, they would have won? This gets at one of my 3 gripes about Fast 8, which is the team's lack of agency. In Fast 8, the team does nothing on its own. Everything happens to the team. Nothing happens because of the team. In Fast 9, it's just as much that the bad guy team turned on Jacob that saved the day as it is that our heroes actually did something by destroying the satellite. What is the point of doing that, of showing the team that way? Tej and Roman destroyed the satellite, so that would have saved the world, I guess. I get that. But that's just those two. All the ones on the ground in the chase were barely useful and would have failed if not for Jacob stepping in to help, which only happened because of the coincidence that the bad guys turned on him at the right time. So too bad they didn't see my Fast 8 review and take my advice. But maybe they did on a couple things, but that's later in the review. Back to Jacob. The real issue with Jacob was the character's poor writing and design as a villain. You can't have an interesting villain, your main character's brother, and then show that villain as pure evil. A pure evil villain is not an interesting villain. It's just a target. They did this to Jacob, showed he was pure evil when they gave us the information about him killing the father, then had him basically admit to it at the race between him and Dom. Revelatory moments under pressure are what define your characters for the audience. Jacob's reaction when publicly confronted by his older brother Dom about Jacob killing their father was one of those moments, the biggest in the movie. That defined Jacob's character for us, whether the writers intended it or not, and it made him pure evil. If you're going to have that, you might as well just have Cypher as the villain, like in Fast 8, and have her take Letty hostage or something for the leverage or conflict. The point of having an interesting villain like the brother figure is to have that built-in conflict with your villain. They wasted that with Jacob by showing him essentially admit that he killed the father. So for the portion of the movie where we really needed a slightly sympathetic villain, we instead got a pure evil villain. But there's more, because the writers then reversed themselves. In a later scene, current age Jacob, played by John Cena, tells Dom that he did sabotage their father's car, but not to kill the father, but instead to help the father throw the race so that he could get a payoff from a bookie to cover the father's deep debt that was due to the father's doting relationship with Dom. So it flips it back to Dom's fault, but it's too late, because by that time, Jacob's character is too far gone. We needed that complicated, sympathetic villain earlier to set everything up, have some tension, and force the audience into a choice. At the point in the movie where they reverse this, the audience has already made a choice, a non-choice choice, as who would choose a pure evil villain. Good writing leads the audience to their choice at the right time. This story's writing forced that position on the audience too early, then ripped it out from under them for no reason. That is the weakest point of the movie. The rest of the movie is slightly better. I love the treatment of Roman, especially after his treatment in Fast 8. In Fast 8, Roman was not even shown to be a good and competent driver, even though that is one of his 2 specialties, the other being to be a loudmouth attention grabber when needed. In Fast 8, he was specifically shown to be scared to even drive a vehicle. Well, in this one, someone went out of their way to write in a line where Roman, while driving a Pontiac Fiero spaceship conversion in space, says, "Driving is what I do," and then drives a Pontiac Fiero spaceship in space. They need to get the characters right in these movies. They went a long way to getting this right. I feel vindicated. That's one of my 3 gripes from Fast 8 that they corrected. The other is the characters' motivations. Dom's motivation is of course to deal with his brother issues. The team's motivation is related to their relationship with Mr. Nobody, who they've been working with for 2 movies. So I can understand that, and it's enough for me. Remember in Fast 8, their motivation behind the initial job, during which Dom turned on them, was just to work a job. No questions asked. Just pure mercenary stuff. That's a problem for these characters, for these movies. These characters are not mercenaries. This is supposed to be a family and all that, so they need some motivation for their actions. It's not just simple self-interest or money. Connecting it to Mr. Nobody is a good enough way to do this. I think there is a better way, but that's for another video. I love the detail of Dom, Mia, and Jacob's father being named Jack. That is Brian and Mia's oldest son's name. There was no connection between the kid and Mia's father made before Fast 9. If there was, let me know down in the comments. Also, do we have a name at all for Brian and Mia's younger kid? I don't think so, because it was unborn in Furious 7 and the only kid in Fast 8 was Dom's baby. But don't be surprised if that one shows up in Fast 10 named Jacob. Another good thing, I mentioned this in my non-spoiler review, but there were enough practical effects in this one for me. Some of the electromagnet stuff and obviously all the space stuff was done with pure CGI, but that's okay. The chase scenes are what really matters, and those were largely practical. Back to some negatives. Bringing back all these characters, especially from Tokyo Drift, which I get it, Justin Lin, after the disaster of Fast 8, you're flexing your muscles by bringing back so much of the Tokyo Drift cast. Sean, Twinkie, Earl, and of course Han, as Tokyo Drift was the first one you directed. But the way the writing was done on this was a little too much. It didn't have to be all so completely connected. Like Han, his job for Mr. Nobody in Tokyo didn't have to be the job for the exact device in this movie. To me, that is a little too much interconnection, especially if you add back that Mr. Nobody was working Jacob for all those years too. Plus, without Han's connection to the Ares device, you wouldn't have the character L clinging on around Han, which I thought was very awkward and creepy even. I'll go ahead and say it. There isn't enough of an age difference between the two actors for that to work. Is that his daughter, or is he banging her? You have to pay attention to tell. Shouldn't have been in the movie at all, but should have been a younger actor if she is going to be in the movie. Additionally, the stuff about Mr. Nobody and Han puts a lot more gap in the timeline between Fast 6 and Furious 7 in my opinion. You can see Brian and Mia's kid, Jack, in Fast 6 and Furious 7. Of course, Han is fake killed at the beginning of Furious 7, so you can see the age differential for Jack. It ain't that much. So now we're to believe Han was doing all that stuff in Tokyo during that time? It must be a longer time than we were led to believe previously. This movie tried a little too much and is distorting the timeline a little. But of course they went into space, so who cares? But again, I'm vindicated, because in multiple videos I've stated how much of an outlier Tokyo Drift is. It's as if someone watched my videos, heard my comments, and decided to connect Tokyo Drift and its characters to the greater franchise through this movie. As I stated in my non-spoiler review, I was bored in a few spots. That was not for lack of action, but due to the action being meaningless in many ways. I said this in my proposal to fix Fast 8, and this movie needs it even more than Fast 8, but Dom should get caught. I don't know if it's something in Vin Diesel's contract or what, but Dom cannot lose a fight, no matter what. And it seems like he can't get captured either, but something has to raise the stakes, and Doomsday Weapon after Doomsday Weapon after Doomsday Weapon ain't gonna cut it for 2 more movies. Which brings me to my next point, that they really need to invest whatever it takes to come up with a fresh plot device. Since Fast 6, it's been the same old thing, a Doomsday Weapon or its component parts. Fast 6, Nightshade device. Furious 7, God's Eye. Fast 8, the use of a nuclear submarine and nuclear codes. Fast 9, yet another Doomsday super weapon. This is getting old. How many times can you blow up the Death Star? Stop a Doomsday Weapon from falling into the wrong hands. That's what I thought about Fast 9. I'm sure I'll come out with more on this movie soon. I already have a few good ideas about how to improve it, so consider subscribing so you don't miss that. Till next time, this is Talkin' Fast, Talkin' Furious.
Nice clubhouse.